In every community, there are young lives at crossroads facing a choice that could shape their future: the path of delinquency or the path of justice. But what exactly is juvenile delinquency? Juvenile delinquency refers to the behavior of minors that is unlawful or antisocial. It can include a range of behaviors, from minor offenses like vandalism to more serious crimes like theft or assault. Juvenile delinquency is more influenced by a variety of factors such as socio-economic background, family dynamics, and peer influences. But amid the challenges, there is hope. That is where juvenile justice comes in. Juvenile justice is the system of laws, policies, and practices designed to address juvenile delinquency. It encompasses everything from law enforcement and arrests to court proceedings and rehabilitation programs. Juvenile justice is about more than just punishment. It's about giving young people a second chance, providing them with the support and resources they need to turn their lives around. Together, let's stand against juvenile delinquency and embrace the principles of juvenile justice, because every young life deserves a chance to thrive. Good afternoon and welcome to Diversion Diaries. Here we're on episode 2 and we're here today with Joshua Edward.
Okay.
A brief intro of Joshua. He stated that in the verdant landscapes of St. Lucia, Joshua Edward was raised by his parents, who instilled in him a deep reverence for God. From an early age, Joshua felt a stirring within him, a divine calling to serve the Lord. By the tender age of 7, he was already preaching and actively involved in ministry within his local church community. As the years passed, Joshua's passion for ministry continued to grow. By the time he reached 13, he found himself leading Sunday school services, sharing foundational Bible teachings with both young and old. Little did he know, these formative experiences would shape the trajectory of his life. He stated that in 2017, during an intense prayer session, he received a clear directive from God stating, "Go to Guyana." It was a calling he couldn't ignore. With unwavering faith, he left behind the familiar comforts of St. Lucia and embarked on a journey to a new land, trusting entirely in God's divine plan. As Joshua reflects on his journey from St. Lucia to Guyana, he is reminded of power and faith and obedience. And today we're here with Joshua Edward once again, who I just gave an intro on. We're talking about diversion from juvenile delinquency.
Yes.
The last time we met, we spoke about juvenile delinquency and fatherhood.
Yes.
And just to give a brief background of what we spoke about ways juveniles can divert from delinquency with the help of their fathers. We spoke about the importance fathers play, and we spoke about how active fathers can impact their children's lives. Today we're speaking to the juveniles mainly, even their parents, but we're speaking to them mainly. We're talking about diversion from juvenile delinquency. To start our discussion, what's your understanding of juvenile delinquency?
My understanding of juvenile delinquency on the broader spectrum, or in its simplest form, is that a young child went astray. That's the most basic answer I could give.
Yeah.
A young child went astray, alright, and is behaving in ways that is not acceptable to society and would be harmful to those around them and even society on a wider scale or wider scope.
Yeah.
Now, narrowing that down, it comes to the point of, like we said in fatherhood and juvenile delinquency, it comes down to morality again, because we know we have different cultures, okay, and in multiple cultures you would have it ranging on what would be considered juvenile delinquency from others. For example, in a Muslim or an Arab nation, a woman who doesn't wear the khimar, the hijab, would be considered a juvenile, a child that doesn't wear it or wants to rebel against that act, you know, and they could be punished for that, you know. In our society, it may not be that way. However, we still have certain moral standards that every child must obey, and when a child doesn't obey or conform to that, we have juvenile delinquency.
Correct. And you spoke about some different cultures and so on, but there are some delinquent behaviors that we know and we can identify here in Guyana.
Yes.
You want to list some of those?
Some of the delinquent cultures, I mean, first of all, I would say children will always be children, and we had our childhood days. However, when you have a child that would want to embark on activities that are
Not
more
acceptable.
adult like and not acceptable at the age, okay, then you would understand that that is juvenile delinquency. You would not find a set of 13-year-olds going to Giftland City, going to this bar and drink
Yes.
alcohol and have a wonderful time. You know, if you're finding that, that's a problem. If you're going to find children that are overly aggressive, using knives to assert dominance, using different forms of weaponry that they should not even have to sort out issues they may have with others, that is already a problem. And that's some of the things that you would find among some of the juveniles here in Guyana. On a softer scale, you would find children who engage in immoral activities at a very young age, and that's something that we have to be able to be open to speak about and how to deal with it, because teenage pregnancy comes because, well, one of the reasons, not the only reason, but teenage pregnancy comes because some children decided they wanted to quote unquote explore, and in exploring they went astray. Parents would have tried to stop them, they didn't want to be stopped, and then this happens and they believe that they're ready for the world, but there's so much to learn.
Yeah, so much to learn indeed. And you spoke of parents and you spoke of juvenile delinquency and
Yes.
parents advising children. Now, I know some children, they might think that, their parents might be old school and
Yes.
they don't really know about the modern world. But some things really still apply to today's world and the modern world, like they apply to the old school, even though
Yes.
all might not apply, but most of it applies. And I want to touch on how some methods that parents can use to really help their children divert from juvenile delinquency. I know we spoke about it during fatherhood and juvenile delinquency, and we stated that fathers being active,
Yes.
them showing their children love, them playing a greater role in their children's life was some ways. But I want to touch on the parent, the household,
Yes.
the father, the mother, both of them, ways they can really help their children divert. If you want to touch on some of those.
I could touch on it. Thank you very much for that question. What I will tell you is that the the methods change, but the principle remains the same. Okay? If the principle is that you need to dress decently, the method of dressing decently in the modern world may change as opposed to in the 1600s.
Right, yeah.
But the principle still remains.
Dress moderate.
Dress modestly, dress moderately. On that basis, I will say that parents have the principles. Either they learned it from experience, or they learned it from their parents themselves, or they learned it from seeing what's going on in society. Our mistake is that we take the methods and make them principles. So, when it's dark, you make sure you get home. That is
Especially
a
as
method.
a child.
Yes, that is a method, sad to say. It worked before because of there not being as much electricity around and certain things, and the community environment, and they were protecting you from danger. But now the modern world has a nightlife.
Yeah.
Not saying that nightlife is always something bad or something that shouldn't. But now you can be outside and you still feel safe.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to tell your child to be in before dark only, what you're going to find is that the child will soon rebel.
Yeah.
But the principle is you must always keep yourself safe at certain periods of time. Now, you instill that principle in the child, they will do well. So that's one of the active things the parents can do, is to get the principles and quote-unquote modernize it, if I could say.
And even with that,
Yes.
let's say, for example, you want the child to be in before dark.
Yes.
It might not work. Like you said, the child will rebel. But we have malls now, and they're mostly safe. They have security and so on.
Yes.
So if you set a time frame, you tell your child, okay, if you're going to go out with friends or something, be in at a specific time. You know the friends they're going with, so that you know their activities and you know their whereabouts, and give them a moderate time to be back home, so that they get to live a life and relate with their friends while still really staying within that frame that you set as a parent so that they don't rebel and so on. Now, I want to touch on. Go
And
ahead.
if I could add to that, sometimes it's not even only that. In the world that we're living in today, we have lessons. And sometimes lessons go till 7.
Right, right.
Parents are
Or
working.
later.
Yeah, or later. Parents are working and they would appreciate that. So, it's just that many factors are in there. And the example you gave also builds trust within you and the child. Because if they can be home by 8, or be home by 8:30. I wouldn't go to 9. 9 is a little stretching it a little
that's
too
kinda
far.
late,
But
yeah.
be home by 8. Then you would now give them a little bit of rope to see how far they go, trusting them in that way. And that principle or that strategy, that method for the principle would just cause your child to flourish, knowing that they can trust mom and dad and that they would be able to go ahead.
And
You were saying.
yeah, knowing their friends, knowing the people who they're with also helps you as a parent to know the people they're really being with and patterning the behaviors they might have. And so definitely telling them who their friends should be or what characteristics they should look for in friends would be a good thing. Now, I know you're a Christian and I know you're a brother in the church and so on. I want to relate juvenile delinquency and I want to relate,
Yes.
following and children obeying their parents so that they can divert or not follow the path of delinquency. I want to relate it to Christianity or generally, beliefs, religion.
Yes. No problem. I will say it like this first of all. I'll give both sides of the coin like I always love to do. Okay? The Bible says, children, obey your parents in the Lord. That in the Lord, many of us just miss out on because that
Right.
in the Lord
I
is
remember
very,
you said that.
yes, very, very important. And he says, honor your father and your mother, which is the first commandment with promise. The goal of a father and a mother is to direct this newborn child to the place where they are supposed to be in life, in destiny, in purpose. I'll say that again. The goal of a father and mother is to direct the newborn child to the place of life, to the place of destiny, to the place of purpose. If you are not doing that as a parent, you are missing out. Now, that road may not always be straight and, as we call, straight
Straight
a
and
direct
narrow.
line. There are many obstacles and hurdles that you would have to overcome. However, you as a religious person or as a Christian, there are certain things that you must instill, and they are called values. Values are so important, and I'm learning that more and more. Many of us try to instill, again, methods into the child. You must always wash the dishes. That is good. But if you're instilling a chore and the child doesn't see the need for the chore, soon you'll have to defend why you're instilling that method. But if you instill values, the child will see it from day one.
Right, because they can now relate washing dishes to when they get their own home.
Exactly.
And they realize that washing dishes would be something they would have to do at some point.
And when you tell them about washing dishes based on the value of probably keeping your environment clean, you wouldn't have to tell them to sweep this place or pick up after themselves or this or that or the other. You wouldn't have to do all of that because you instilled a value inside of them or a value system.
Right.
Now, in the religious sect, in Christianity, Hinduism, Muslims, Buddhists, everywhere else, they have value systems.
Correct.
Obviously, I follow because I believe it is the greatest of all of Jesus Christ, Christian values and ethics. But what I'm saying is that parents are to learn the value systems that will be acceptable first to God, to themselves, to society, so that they can instill it in that child.
Children.
Because many children are people of destiny, You have seen a lot of people fail because they have one mishap or one challenge or one area in their life that they haven't had sorted out. That's what causes them to fail. Whereas other things, they have it lying down. So it means that that school that they were supposed to pass through, let's take an example. You may not know how to treat a woman. And now the way you interpret women around you is one that is not becoming. Now you may be avid worker in society. You may be able to take care of things. You may be able to run a business. You may be well in school. You may be doing all those things. But because of that one thing, it's now a breakdown.
Yeah.
That's what we have to ensure that our children doesn't get. Because a lot of the times the enemy that you don't destroy will sooner or later destroy you. And that is what we have to handle. Me, in the Christian set, I know the Bible is not just a book of stories, it's a book of characters. And the Old Testament has many, many things to show you what good character is like. And even the New Testament also, but like I said, two sides of the coin. One of our fathers in Christianity was a juvenile and was a delinquent. His name is Jacob. And we saw who Jacob became. And this is my note to let everybody know: you don't give up on children. Don't give up on your children. Don't give up on other children. Because Jacob was a juvenile and he was a delinquent. Very much so. Okay? And he was very cunning and wise in his delinquencies.
And you could have used that for something positive.
Exactly. Exactly. And in that situation now, if God was to look at just the person he had in front of him, he would cast away Jacob. However, he saw the end product. Because when this man was about to die, he had 12 of his sons, and he prophesied to all of them how their life would impact Jesus Christ and show Jesus Christ from their life. Now, a man that can see so far ahead, you don't throw them or cast them away because they're a juvenile. Okay? And it's true, one of our fathers in the faith was Jacob, and he was a juvenile. But he didn't end that way. And that's my key to let parents know they don't have to end that way. All right? There are mechanisms and systems, and this is what this entire conversation is about. There are things that we can put in place to ensure that our children go that path. So even if you give them the values and the morals that will make them grow up well like an Isaac, they could become like Isaac. However, if they ever become like Jacob, the Bible says, train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they grow old, they will not depart from it. So even if they end up like Jacob, know if you train them like Isaac, tomorrow they will become Israel. They will become like Isaac.
Yes. Good point. Good point.
Thank you.
I think you hit the nail there.
Yes.
I also want to relate, since we're on the topic of religion and delinquency, I now want to relate how the church or how religious institutions play a role in helping with delinquent children.
First thing I will let you know is, I think I said it in the first episode, that idle hands are the devil's playground. Any religious institution that is teaching good morals, ethics, and values is taking a child off of some idle time. Which means the devil should have less playground with that child. Okay? So now you are converting idle time to time that is beneficial and time that can be used to do something more excellent or excellently. When you have, for example, a church and you are gathering the children for VBS, like I said the last time, and you are letting them do their arts and crafts and everything, and they can take it home and they can show their mom, show their dad that they did this. Now it's up to the father and the mother to accolade them for it. Sometimes it may not be the best, but considering where the child could have been if they were not at VBS, that would be a beneficial thing. Okay? Many children become delinquent simply because, like the Mr. Augustus was here previously, because the parents have to go to work, the parents have to do different things, and the child is left home alone. I remember a tragic story that I think a house burned down or something because the mother,
3 children died.
with it pained me. It pained me right here. And as somebody who has a business, who's a business owner, I have Wendy's Pizza Parlor. I had my fair share of dealing with single moms. And it made me want to have a daycare because the business is now feeling the pain of what the single mom is feeling,
Everything is a trickle down.
and everything is a ripple effect. And now I cannot just say I'm not hiring single moms, because what kind of lifestyle is that? Okay? I want to become a prime minister tomorrow. I can't just take that stance and say this is what is going to happen, because that's a member of society and they're trying to do something well to take care of their child. So it made me want to have a daycare. Like if I was able to get everything in order and had the resources, I would have a daycare. I would totally have a daycare, and my daycare would just be to take care of the children of the parents that I hire. Truly, truly, knowing that the children will be okay, they will be taught well, same morals and values, so they don't become delinquents, and the parent is feeling safe at work,
And the children are safe.
and the children are safe. It's a great ecosystem. And the church can do likewise. It could do the same thing. Okay, so that's $1 million idea that I just give to churches, right? And some of them do have it indeed. Okay, so you can have these things set up with churches, and it will stop the children from being idle, even from a young age, even into the teenager years. One more point, I learned that many of the older churches, and I think you could find it in Guyana also, they had schools, they had businesses. So they were not just churches. They had schools, they had businesses in the seminaries, they had multiple things. And I always used to wonder why. And as I grow older, I'm learning about this ecosystem that they were building. And I spoke about the all boys school that I went to. It's a government assisted school, it's a Catholic school. So the Catholic Church planted a Catholic school for all boys, and they had other institutions there that they can take care of and do everything. Now the school is 135 years now, or maybe even more.
And now the Catholic Church would get to instill the Catholic values and
into the children from young. So that is what it is, and you're preventing juveniles from procreating, because you always reproduce after your kind.
Right.
So if you are an avid member in society, your job is to reproduce an avid member in society, a good member of society.
Yeah. And even looking back at my life while you were speaking, and I'm thinking down the line, had it not been for church, or had it not been for the people in my life, family and so on, I could have gone other paths, because I was
You and me both, brother. You and me both.
I could have been a juvenile with some of the things I did in school. It wasn't just because I didn't know better, but school, and you just try to be yourself, and
you're trying to fit in, you're trying to do so many things, and then no one is there to tell you that you're going too far. Obviously the children would push you to go ahead until the fire explodes in your face,
even though the teachers tried.
Even though the teachers tried. And that is something that we have to know. And like we said again, if you train up the child in the way that they should go, when they grow old, they will not depart from it. That is very important to our lives. As it relates to removing juveniles, or lessening on the amount of juveniles already in society, that may be a little bit more work, or not necessarily more work. It's just that we need another system.
It's a bit harder.
It's a bit harder.
Now transform them.
Yes.
When you could rather work with them
Yes.
from the beginning, so that they don't follow that path.
However, it's not impossible. Like I said about Jacob, it's not impossible. So we just need another system of advantage, because if we try to use the same system to train children to transform juveniles, you will find out it wouldn't work, because this system is to train children, okay, to become avid members of society. If you're trying to take this system for this, it's like trying to take a round peg and fit it in a square hole. It will not work. There will still be loose ends that you don't meet. So we need another system, and I think Childlink is able to create such a system, even with the program that you were telling me about.
The Big Brother program.
Yes. So these things are very important.
Definitely. Now, I want to relate. We spoke about the church. We spoke about parents.
Yes.
Now, I want to relate it to the society, communities. The role communities play in preventing delinquency. Let's touch on that. I want to talk about how a child who might be going down a delinquent path, a community noticing this, a community turning a blind eye. What advice would you give to them, or what would you say to them to help that child?
As I said before, I will say it again. Let us not allow ourselves to turn a blind eye to any child going down a wrong path. Because when you're an adult, whether you like it or not, you're a leader. You are a leader. because there are children that are younger than you. There are people that are younger than you that are looking up to you
Looking up,
indirectly.
Mm-hmm.
Not only directly, but indirectly. So even if you have no children, you have children.
Mm.
You just did not procreate them.
Mm.
But you have a level of responsibility for them also. So don't turn a blind eye to it. And I tell everybody it. I mean, there are many people that verbally abuse children and try to go far with it. That's not what we're asking for. Okay? But you have a child, and I see your child is doing something that's not good, and I call you Milton. Why is, I don't know what your child's name would be. Why is Milton Jr.
Uh-huh.
Why am I seeing him throwing stones at vehicles that pass in for fun after school?
Mm.
You saw him when you see him. I saw him XYZ place.
Mm.
I just saved your life and your child's life.
Right.
Because a glass breaks, they'll never ask the child to pay.
Right.
Okay, something goes wrong, their child would not have the full blunt of it is the parents.
Mm-hmm.
So just these simple phone calls, and we don't have to add extra sauce to the call. I don't have to say your child is this and your child is that and your child is the other. No. And if you decide that you're going to backlash at me for doing that, then I apologize, because vindication is in the womb of time. And time will tell whether I was doing the right thing or not, because we speak the truth in love. We're not going to ask you or tell you something just because of such. Or I could be like, I saw your daughter, it's 5 o'clock, I know school ends at 3, and I saw your daughter with two other children and a guy just there laughing by XYZ
Doing
place.
things that you know they shouldn't be doing.
And even if it could be that they just came from lessons at 10 to 5 and they're just waiting for a bus. Just me calling you, showing that concern, makes you feel at rest that there is somebody that is actually looking out positively for your child. Because sometimes the child may not be doing anything wrong.
Right.
But you know, you saw and you called. That's community. That's what community is about. Okay? So now you could be father and say, what were you doing at this place at that time? You know, and then she'll want to know how, but it's because we have a community. United we stand, divided we fall. Okay, and if the community is going to be divided, we will fall as a society.
Definitely. Good point. Now, I want to touch on any personal experiences. It might not have been you. Maybe you might not have been a juvenile.
I have
But-
personal experiences.
But maybe you've dealt with a child
Yes.
who has been going down that path. What was that experience like? Or if you want to share on your own personal experience.
I had personal experiences, not necessarily of me being a juvenile, but you know, children will be children. And I wanted to go down my own path, and they had to take the rope and put it around my neck and pull back. You know, and thank God that they pulled back and I was able to follow. But personal experiences, I will say this one. Not of me, but of someone else. I remember there was a young guy in our church, actually. And by that time, I'm a little old. I'm like 18, 19 years old. He's like 14, 15. And he's at school. And I'm telling him, this route you're going there is not good. Ironically, I am speaking to him from personal experience, but I was yanked. So I escaped. And I was yanked by my pastor who, God bless his soul, I mean, he's gone to be with the Lord now, but he yanked me. And what happened is that he was interested in this young lady, okay? And I knew that at that time, and the kind of person that he was interested in, they would not only be a distraction, but I'm looking for the word that will give it the gravity that I'm asking for. But they will just take all in church we say take all his virtues from him, right? So like everything that is a talent inside of him, she would just collect everything, and then he would have like no more. And I saw that this girl would have done that, and I spoke to him about it. Very horrific experience. I spoke to him about it. He listened to me, and better yet, the secondary school I went to is the one he was going to. So I could identify with him even in that regard. And and let him know, look here, this girl is not good for you.
Mm-hmm.
We see where this girl is going. The things that this girl has experienced in life already, you don't know anything about it. You're still innocent to a lot of things that this girl would have already experienced in life.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to say that he's a man, I'm 16, I'm a big man, and go out and experience. And when he went out to experience, or what he thought would be a great experience, when we looked for him again, he was in narcotics, he was amongst the wrong crowd, he was um, all his lips were changing color. I'm trying to
Yeah.
say it very nicely. You know that these things were happening to him. And sad to say, the girl that he was with that introduced him to all of that, obviously they broke up. And another one came that will just keep him right there. Make sure that he
And this
isn't
was
restored.
at the age of 16.
This was
14,
yeah.
14 you said?
Well, at that time, I was speaking to him earlier, but the fire broke out at 16, right? And now when I look at him, I wag my head because I'm seeing that I escaped that because of my pastor, okay? And my pastor drilling me to ensure that I never went down that road. But me as a young man, I take blame, and I like to take blame a lot. I take blame for probably not drilling him as hard as I should because I know how hard I was drilled to escape.
And you wanted to give the same.
And I wanted to give
even
the same.
as a young person.
But then remember, as a young person, I'm 19, he's 16. You're not my father. You young. They will want to throw all kinds of words in your face. And I guess the fear of hearing that, and also because I was hearing it to an extent because of where I was going and how I was getting ready to go off to Guyana for school and stuff. I guess that I didn't want that, and I tried to warn him and speak to him so much, and I kept going. And the thing is, everything rises and falls on leadership. We look at the rest of his siblings, and some of them have followed the same path. Okay,
And he's the oldest?
and
or-
he's the eldest one.
So maybe they have followed pattern of his behaviors and probably think that maybe this was good. But even for such persons, we know that that's not the end.
He will never be.
There is hope.
He will never be.
There is
hope. Once there is life, there is hope. That's what I say.
Yeah, for sure. And systems, like you mentioned, we can touch on some systems that can be put in place for bringing those persons out of that dungeon and bringing them back into the light where they can add to society in a more positive way.
The truth, before I enter the systems, the truth is, many of us, and I would surely believe Childlink is not a part of that because you're dealing with it. But many people, their mindset is that those children cannot come back, or them coming back would be too much work for them.
Yeah.
But you have to understand the mindset of a child that is in that situation. Number one, the child is lonely. No matter how many people are around them boasting that they have this friend and that friend, and they have these nicknames for each other and everything like that, the child is lonely. You come to be a light in that darkness, the child will trust you. Number two, we have to be able to forbear. I spoke about forbearance the last time. We have to be patient and forbear. Well, not necessarily. I would not necessarily say forbear. I would say be patient. Because forbearing means that although the child doesn't change, you would still keep. But you're believing for the child to change. So you have patience. You will find times when the child will lapse. Okay? And you just have to take it as a blow and continue the journey. Yeah, and that's something. Yes, that's something that I learned from Jesus actually. Sometimes you fail God and he takes it as a blow and he says, Joshua, let's continue. Okay? I forgive you, let's continue. And very much so with juveniles, you would have to be able to do that. Because if you believe that they will not fail you at some point or another, I mean, they will do something that will just make you feel like dropping all the weights and running. But you can't do that. Because deep down in their heart, that's what many people did to them. And that's what put them in that state of loneliness. And you know who didn't leave them? The other juvenile delinquents. Because they were
that's
as
no
a
circle, and
because that's what the circle.
Like they're connected there,
and so in creating the system, that is one of the places I wouldn't necessarily say you could target, but know that you will be influential. One, in their loneliness, that you could be a light and a help to them.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is in patience,
Mm-hmm.
because when a child sees that they made that mistake and you were still patient with them and say, no, that's not the way, let's do it this way, XYZ ABC 1 2 3. Not that the child will be able to manipulate you,
Mm-hmm.
but that the child would see that you are actually interested
Mm-hmm.
and you're so forward thinking that you're literally leaving it behind.
Mm-hmm.
I have two girls that came to live with my mom and I, and they're by no means juveniles. Okay? We grew up in church together. They came for school also.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful girls, they're twins. And I told them, let me tell you, whatever happened in St. Lucia, leave it in St. Lucia. Right now we here, we moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the mindset we would have when we're creating the system for the juveniles. So like the Big Brother program and the mentorship that we were speaking about, that's my mindset. Whatever happened in the past, we leave it right there. Let's look to move forward, okay? You have a better life, you have a lot of time ahead of you. Okay, another part of the system, if I could say quickly, is giving them a time span, because many children that are juveniles don't sit down and think of the bigger picture, probably because there was no one to show them that there's a bigger picture. So a question I like to ask people is, when do you think you're going to die? It seems like at face value it seems like a very touchy question, like why would you ask that? But if you sit down and think that, okay, I want to live until I'm 70 years old, and right now you're 14, which means that you have 56 years remaining to live. Okay, that is about four times or 5 times your age or something like that, right? That you still have, that you could live. Making a child think like that, even if it's a juvenile, they'll go and sit down and calculate, because it will show them that my first 14 years may have been a mess. These are the 54 years or 56 years.
Still ahead.
It's still ahead, and I can make the best of it. And if I could go so far down in 14 years, how far up would I go in 56 years? And that's 70. People say things like 90, and I would agree with them, because the more time you give me is the better for us.
Right.
And all that we would encapsulate in the system and bring it to them.
Yeah. I like those points.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now, we've said a lot about the parents. We said a lot about the church and the religious community in a whole. We spoke about the children and the role they can play. Now, what positivity do you see coming out of a child who might have been a delinquent and is now diverting and coming back into the light and now trying to add a little more to society? What positivity do you see coming out of that?
The positivity stems globally in every area, because when you take a stone and put it in the water, the ripple effects and drop it in the water, it will create ripples. Now, someone who was once a juvenile that, if I could say, recovers, quote unquote, if that's an acceptable term to use.
That's right.
Yes, now would come out and be making a positive impact in society. First of all, that would be a story, a very good story. Secondly, that would be a good, I'm looking for the word, but I'm not finding, but like a role model to many.
To other juveniles.
Okay? Making them know that it's a possibility. Number three, you have somebody that will be able to pull up another and correct them. Number four, somebody that recovers from that, most of the time they would never go back. I just don't want to say all the time, because all the time might be a little far-fetched, but most of the time, if not 99% of the time, they won't go back. So somebody who gets out of juvenile delinquency and now is making a positive impact in society, you could now use them as a tool and as an instrument to ripple their mindset into other juveniles, okay? And the truth of the matter is that we need those kinds of people in the media. We need those kinds of people in government. We need those kinds of people in politics, in legislation, in We need those kinds of people as doctors. We need them as lawyers. We need them in
Everywhere.
every part of society. Because the thing is, when you're dealing with people, you would meet juveniles in every part of society.
Right.
And if you have those that have been able to overcome, then they would be able to speak to them not in a stern, harsh way, but in a way that will cause them to understand that number one, you can get out of it. Number two, it is easy for you to get out of it if you just follow this pattern. Number three, we believe in you. We believe in you. And we know that you can do it.
Yeah.
And that positive impact tells a better story, leaves a better impact, and has a better motto and slogan than anything anybody else would see.
Right, right, definitely. Now, I want to go back a little bit to the children, and I want to touch on children who might have peers, and their peers might be going down that path, but they they shouldn't. None of them should be going down that path.
Yes.
But what advice would you give to them so that they can lead their peers and even themselves down a better path?
It's amazing you asked that question because now I'm thinking there is something called peer pressure. But what's the opposite of peer pressure? Is there an opposite? I don't think we have ever coined the
Probably
term.
peer pressure in a positive
In
way.
a positive way, maybe. You know? Or peer helpers, I don't know.
Peer
But
helpers.
but I've never seen us coin a term as the opposite of peer pressure. Now, you want to impact, it may be a little bit difficult because you may not understand, but that's where the parents' morals and values come in. And I'll tell you a story. When I went to the Catholic school, they found, obviously that time we grew up in poverty. I don't hide the fact that I grew up in poverty. They found a scholarship for a child that may have been in need in first form. Okay? And that child would be given a 5-year scholarship at the school from some past students that want to give back.
This is at the Catholic school.
That's at the Catholic school. And I just entered first form. And my homeroom teacher gave or considered me. And then when I spoke to them, I got the scholarship. Something happened. And I told the guy, I can't do that. I can't do that because I'm on a scholarship. And that is because of moral values from my father, my mother, my church, my elder siblings, and everyone else that was in the community that wanted to see me go the correct path and would have helped in that. I told them I couldn't do that, and I didn't know it was making such an impact. My principal heard that story and it touched his heart. Even till today, he would speak about it. How Joshua told in like first or second form, I told them, and nobody knew that I got that scholarship, right? But they, because of the nature of it, they didn't want to expose that kind of thing. You know that Joshua is living, that Joshua has those challenges. But my principal would say that. So for the same juveniles, I would say the parents play a pivotal role in society and community in instilling those moral values. Now, from those moral values, a child will be able to draw their friend away from that path.
Right.
Okay? They always say misery likes company. So we need to isolate the misery so that we can deal with it. All right? If society can show something that is not, that we have shunned this kind of behavior, and if society can show that we have shunned this kind of behavior, then it would be easy to draw this person. Qatar, and I was just thinking of that example, when they held, I think, World Cup, FIFA World Cup, they are an Arab nation and they banned alcohol. And Bud Light wanted to come into Qatar with alcohol, and they said, no way. They were not having it. Okay? And I mean, it caused them so much revenue. It caused them so much losses and all those things like that. But the nation held to their principle. And everybody had to respect it by all means. And that's what I'm asking for with society. So a child would be able to pull them out, because children largely, a lot of them know right from wrong.
Yeah.
They do. Okay?
Generally.
The most basic things. They know when, if you pick up a stone or you pick up something and throw it behind somebody, that's a wrong
That's
thing
wrong.
to do.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do that, right? So they would be able to draw them back, but it all stems from morals and values.
Yeah.
And I just used that story of me to just show that I didn't know I was being impacted so much. At that age, you think everybody's like that, you know? But a child wanting to, and remember, it's an all boys school and boys will be boys. But then I had to draw a straight line and say, I can't do this, because if I lose this scholarship.
Right, and that's what I'm about to say.
Yes.
Even then, you knew the importance of the scholarship, and
Mm.
you knew where you wanted to go. And if you had done this, then you losing the scholarship would mean that, you know, everything drop off.
Yes,
Possibly.
and the kind of licks I might get, you know, is another story. But we're not dealing with that, right? But it's something that I grew up knowing, and I grew up thinking about, and I'm reminded of it even today. Even sometimes when I may just want to throw in the towel or this or that, I would remember events like that where I said, I can't do this because.
And looking at where you come from.
Yeah, people are depending on me, and look at what was said. I told him, I can't be a part of that. I can't. I'm sorry. You gotta find somebody else, okay? I can't
Better
go
if
do
nobody, but
yes, better if nobody. But as for me, the stakes are too high, and I apologize. And many children, they haven't seen that the stakes could be very high for a lot of parents, you know. And social media has really damaged children in it. Even for TikTok, the owner of TikTok, I saw them grilling him in an interview at one point, and they were asking if his child has TikTok, and he said no, his child does not have TikTok, because I think he lives in Singapore, and in Singapore, children children under 13 are not allowed to have a TikTok account. Children under 13 are not allowed it. So whereas in America they will have the kids TikTok, you know, in Singapore it's banned. You can't have it if you're under the age, or whatever country that he was living in, you know. And that's fun. That just shows how culture would be able to do such.
And now as we're coming down to program time, the time fly out so fast. We were having a good discussion, but every good thing comes to an end. Now that we're coming down to program time, advice for parents. We didn't get to speak on teachers. Helping juveniles divert, because I know children are in school a whole lot, so teachers really play a big role in molding them. And even for me, my teachers have played a great role in molding me into the person I am. And advice for parents, teachers, church leaders, religious leaders in general, and their community as a whole, in helping them to divert and helping them to bring these children back onto a path that helps them add to society.
Well, my advice to all of the aforementioned is we need you, okay? Probably in the next time we come, we'll speak about teachers and all this, because teachers played a vital role. I just spoke about my principal. You know, I want them to know that we need you. We need you. It is too difficult for one person or just the parents to raise a child. Even in a kingdom with a king and queen, they don't only have the king and queen raising the child. And that's at the highest level. Okay, they have servants, they have butlers, they have people training them for many different things to take care of them. Why is it down at our level we want to only have the king as the father and the queen as the mother? No, we need to work together.
Everyone.
Work together. Everybody works together. A child can play a very good role at home. When their parents are tired, in school you would see a different story. Call, ask questions, show concern. Don't say you're not being paid for it. You will be paid, trust me, in coins greater than money can give. You'll be paid a lot more. We have to be a society that brings our children in. And even now, I pray that each and every child under my voice, that they will adhere to what is being said, and that they will know that there is a better tomorrow for you. And even for the parents, that you will know that there is a better tomorrow for children. Okay? A child that is failing now doesn't have to fail forever. A child that is failing now can succeed tomorrow. Because many of us, we failed at different aspects of our life, but we had people that was able to cushion the failure and to drive us to success.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks to those great points that you've added to our discussion. And with that, I want to thank you for joining us here on Diversion Diaries once again. This is episode 3. Last week we had a rebroadcast of our previous show. I want to thank you for joining us here at Childlink on Diversion Diaries, and I want to remind you that Childlink Guyana is committed to a Guyanese society where every child has the right to a safe, secure family and community. And with that, I want to thank my guest, Joshua Edward, for appearing on the show once again.
It's
Thank
always
you.
a pleasure.
And leaving his great points and advice with your viewers. With that, thank you. See you next time.
In every community, there are young lives at crossroads facing a choice that could shape their future: the path of delinquency or the path of justice. But what exactly is juvenile delinquency? Juvenile delinquency refers to the behavior of minors that is unlawful or antisocial. It can include a range of behaviors, from minor offenses like vandalism to more serious crimes like theft or assault. Juvenile delinquency is more influenced by a variety of factors such as socio-economic background, family dynamics, and peer influences. But amid the challenges, there is hope. That is where juvenile justice comes in. Juvenile justice is the system of laws, policies, and practices designed to address juvenile delinquency. It encompasses everything from law enforcement and arrests to court proceedings and rehabilitation programs. Juvenile justice is about more than just punishment. It's about giving young people a second chance, providing them with the support and resources they need to turn their lives around. Together, let's stand against juvenile delinquency and embrace the principles of juvenile justice, because every young life deserves a chance to thrive.